Hello, everyone. My name's Bobby Seitz, if those of you don't know me. I feel I'm qualified to talk about gardening because I've been doing it for 12 years now. Religiously for the last 5 years, I've been canning, and I've had a greenhouse for the past 3 years, a 10 by 20 foot greenhouse that I heat during the early spring. But the way I start my seeds is you can get mini greenhouses or solo cups and fill them with dirt, but the best thing to buy is the little mini greenhouses. They have little slots for the seeds. You can get them at Walmart for like $7. You put them on under a heating mat, and peppers, they take up to 2 weeks to get started. You got to be very patient with them. I usually start them in March. I do start mine earlier than that, but for someone like you guys that are not really too far into it, would want to start in March. I top my pepper plants. I let them grow. 3 sets of leaves, they'll grow like this. This is a leaf here, another one will grow here. So I'll let that do that 3 times. It'll have 3 sets of leaves, and then it'll have a bunch up here, like a little bunch getting ready to set out another set of leaves. When this happens, I'll cut it right there, top it off. And what that'll do, it'll cause it to branch out from these 2 leaves, and then they'll grow out, do the same thing. Create leaves, and that'll happen, 3 sets of leaves, and then the 4th bunch, and I'll do the same thing and top it with the 2 leaves. And that way it'll be bushier and less stakey. Like this, for example, was not cut at all. It's going straight up. This one, on the other hand, I've topped a couple of times, and it's more bushier. Now versus this one, I'd have to have a 5-foot stake in order to hold that plant up, because when it starts producing fruit, one side's going to be lopsided, and it's going to want to shift that way. So instead, with this one, it's all low to the ground, everything, and it's more spread out, so everything's pretty much balanced. And then in early March, I'll end up starting my cold crops. That would be things that can handle a light freeze up to 20 degrees. Things like broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all those things. They can handle being frozen. A lot of other plants like peppers, tomatoes, they once they freeze, the cell wall actually in the plant explodes, and it will not grow again. But brassicas, they're mainly what you can start in, like cabbage, things that are carrots, and potatoes, radishes, things that grow in the ground. Those things are more or less, those things are frost hardy. You might lose the tops on them, but what you're after is still growing. Now, when starting potatoes, a lot of people do chitting, is what it's called. You would cut it, lay it out in the sun, and let it sprout, and it dries out a little bit. I've never done that. I have done it, but I don't do it because I didn't see much of a difference. I usually just plant the whole potato right away and get it. And then when you harvest your potatoes, you'll end up with a bunch of little ones. You save the little ones, you keep the big ones, and use those little ones for next year to harvest more potatoes. Or if you do it right and you start in April, as soon as the soil's done, you should get a harvest in July, and you can put them right back into the ground and get another harvest in late October, or mid to late October if you're lucky. I start my tomatoes indoors in late March, and then I'll start those in the greenhouse I talked about, the little one. They only give you a couple inches of room. Now once those get a month old, I'll take them and put the entire thing in a solo cup, so only the very top is sticking out. This used to have more leaves below it. There was one more set of leaves down in here, and I just potted the whole thing, took the leaves off and potted, because every single part of a tomato plant will sprout roots. So a lot of people, I start mine early, everything I start early because I have a greenhouse, but I'll start it early and I'll let them get 2-3 feet tall, and then I bury all of it but a foot. and that'll give it a bigger root system, better, healthier plants, and bigger and better tomatoes. Next is the things that I start outside, like on its own. I don't start it inside, doesn't need any extra help, like corn. Again, with carrots, and with corn, I soak those in water for 24 hours beforehand, before I know I'm gonna sow them. You don't put corn in the ground until the last frost date is gone. I can't tell you what the last frost date is. My house in Necedah is May 23rd. Mauston is May 7th. I don't get it. It's something with the elevation or what, so you just put in Google your zip code and last frost date, and you'll get what your last frost date is. I do not understand the system. It's something to do with the elevation. I think Necedah's lower, so it gets, and I'm surrounded by water maybe, I don't know, but yeah, for 24 hours you soak your corn and then lay them out. I like to do, sometimes, not all the time, because it does get a little hard to harvest, but I do a thing called 3 sisters. It's a technique the Indians used to use. You do a circle of corn, and then around that corn you do a circle of some kind of squash, a viney squash, like pumpkins or zucchini, or there's a lot of different squashes. I did loofah, but you put it around there, and those are actually thorny and keeps the critters away. And you have the corn starts to grow up. When it gets about a foot, you put pole beans around it, and the pole beans will climb up the corn. And beans is a nitrogen fixer. Beans, clover, there's something else, but their roots put nitrogen in the soil, which corn is a nitrogen eater. It'll eat all the nitrogen in the soil. That's why usually there's crop rotation, because corn will pretty much take all the nutrients out of the field. But yeah, I usually will do that. Even the next year, I'll put nothing but beans where I put my corn. I usually will put, because I'm always doubling my garden, so I always put my corn where I want to build my next garden bed, because I know it'll deplete the soil. Then I come in and add everything that I want to add. And the way I build my raised beds is I'll dig everything up. I cut trees down. I have trees all over my property. Usually an oak tree is the best, a dead oak tree. I'll cut the limbs up, put that down about 2 or 3 feet into the ground, bury that with sand, and then put my amendments on top. I make my raised bed soil with like a half part peat moss, 2 parts soil, and then 1 part composted manure. Mix it in with compost that I've been saving for the year. Now when you start your seeds inside, you do need to harden them off when you take them outside. You need to, there's a trick that I learned, that you can either do 2 consecutive days of overcast sky. It'll get it acclimated to the UV rays, because no matter what kind of light you have, no matter how close you put your plants to the window, it's not getting that UV ray that it'll get when it's actually outside. So you need to slowly get it acclimated to that. 2 days in overcast, or you start off with, on a sunny day, 2 hours. Bring it inside, put it in the dark. Bring it out the next day, 4 hours. You just keep doubling it until you get to like 16 hours. So it's only like 3 or 4 days process. Yeah. And since Holly brought it up, cannabis is a very hard plant to start. It is like loofah, from what I understand. You would soak it for 24 hours in water and 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide. It helps break the seed open. You let that do for like 24 to 36 hours. Loofah is the same way. It's very, very hard nut to crack. But yeah, you do that, and then you put it in soil and you grow it. This is off a search. But it is legal to grow CBD in Wisconsin, but you do have to follow certain municipalities, because it's not totally legal everywhere. Some places you do need a license, but majority you can't grow that at home. But that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you coming and listening to me talk about my favorite thing. Oh, of course.
Here to get you up here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Val.
So for tomatoes, do you
shop,
Yeah.
the intersection?
I forgot to talk about suckers.
Yeah,
Um,
first thing.
Okay, a tomato plant grows like this, a little different. These are closer on a pepper, but on a tomato plant, they get pretty spread apart. Then eventually suckers come out. This by itself will become a plant on its own. You can cut it off, put it in water for like a week. It'll sprout roots, throw it in the ground. You have yourself another tomato plant. I actually do that every year in my greenhouse. I have one variety of every tomato I'm growing in my greenhouse. Something happens and I do it anyways. I always pinch one off and I start another one just in case. So I always have extra tomato plants on hand. But no, it all depends on how you're growing them and what kind of space. You got a cage, I wouldn't cut any of them because you want to keep it kind of low and more of its energy down towards the ground. But if you want to if you have very minimal space, then I would say cut all of them and then grow them up. They'll get like 12 feet tall, but then grow them up and then find a way to let them hang over something, and then you grow just in a 1 foot square versus, usually you have to give a couple feet for a tomato plant. Another thing, commercial gardening and the guys who sell you seeds, they tell you in the spacing, they'll say, oh, it's 1 foot. So you're outside, what are you thinking? Okay, every foot I need to put a plant. That's not really how it goes. You have a plant here and a plant here, plant here. When they say a foot, they don't mean a foot here. They mean that the plant itself needs a foot. So this is your foot. So in that case, you need 6 inches here and 6 inches here. They're just trying to sell you more seeds. But that is how you're supposed to do it. Yeah. Okay. And I did have some trivia questions. If you guys, anyone want them plants, you can win them. Can anyone tell me what family of plants corn belongs to? Almost everybody here grows it. I guarantee you, everyone here grows it. It's in your front yard.
Grass?
Yes. It is grass. Corn is a type of grass. Indians used to grow it. There would only be 4 or 5 kernels on it, but we manipulated it until it had the most seeds on it. But if you want to plant, I got a rainbow tomato plant that's red on top, yellow on the bottom. Eggplant Black Beauty. It's a black eggplant. A Sugar Rush Peach. Or a Blue Cream Tomato. That's a cherry tomato. It's a cherry tomato that's blue and yellow.
She's going for that big pepper plant.
I know.
That's King of the North. That's my favorite. It's a bell pepper.
Love it.
Okay.
Accept a progress update.
This was very I tried to explain this to my better half, this question, but just bear with me. How many tomatoes does an average person eat a year? Now I based this off of the average weight eaten versus the average weight of a medium tomato, like a Roma tomato. So I divided those two numbers to come up with how many tomatoes.
Like actual tomatoes or like tomato based?
Everything, tomato based, and I only accept answers in multiple of 5.
85.
No. No. All right.
125.
Close.
135.
Lower.
130.
Whoa.
Can we steal from other people?
Ooh.
I warn you, the Sugar Rush Peach is hot. It's hotter than a
Oh, not for me
jalapeno.
then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A little bit high. It's really good though, especially for sauce.
Is that what was in your peach salsa in the refrigerator?
Huh? Yeah. That was one of it.
I would switch it.
Just a question, can you make me peach salsa?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna expect that.
I sell it.
I love
I
peach.
sell it. I'm gonna be at a farmer's market this year.
But that's the question too, what do you do? Do you sell all this at a farmer's
What's
market?
up?
You do
No.
sell your plants?
I used to sell my plants. We're switching over to selling at farmer's market this year.
Okay, what farmers markets?
Uh,
Like
I don't know yet.
Nacita,
There was one in Nacita that we are signing up for, but we don't know. We're waiting to see how the harvest looks and if it's early enough, if I can get into somewhere.
So what do you do with all your vegetables and stuff like that?
I can them or I dehydrate them. I make seasonings. I make onion powder, tomato powder. awesome in ramen noodles. It really is. You just, with a little tablespoon, you cut up tomatoes and dehydrate them.
You have a commercial.
I save onions, yeah, I dehydrate onions for onion powder, make hot sauce.
So you just dry them and like food process them? Like grind them?
Yeah, and the blend, mason jars actually are meant like for regular blenders. You can take the bottom of a regular blender off and put it on the top of a mason jar. Makes it really easy, and you just put whatever you're. Yes. And that's how I make all my powders. And then I can slowly add more to it, because once you make it a powder, it gets real, more compact. So you just keep adding to it. That's why I make my smoothies in the
Everybody's
summer.
gonna come in with cut fingers.
What continent do today's tomatoes originate from?
South America.
Yes. Yeah. Chile, the Andes Mountain is where it's from.
Damn, I'm good.
Yes, Brian, good job.
Would you want one? You guys don't have to take one. I understand if you
Yeah, I
don't want
probably
to.
wouldn't grow it.
Huh?
I probably wouldn't grow it.
You wouldn't grow it? Okay.
Huh?
You can give it to someone. Does someone
He did
else
ask
want
about
one?
continent. Yeah. Look at Nan.
Yeah.
He's right.
I won. You don't get it, man.
I don't want to play.
That's fine. We'll give it to somebody who wants it at the end. Broccoli, cauliflower, and kale all originate from wild mustard greens, aka brassicas. Can you name one more? Yeah. Spinach, cabbage. There's a lot of them.
This is the hot pepper.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we all got visions in our heads.
Everybody's just trying to keep it cool.
What is the most expensive spice in the world that is harvested from the stigmas of a flower?
Saffron.
Yes. You got eggplant or rainbow?
Yeah, that girl.
Make an eggplant parmesan.
All right. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want a rainbow tomato
Are you
plant?
arranging tours?
Maybe one day.
I'd go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah. I have a place I can find.
Okay. That's what I like to hear. Get something started.
So this is a tomato soup, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Schultz and Steven and Bertie.
You had to go get lunch. 2 pieces of steak, I gave more than enough, I guess.
I don't think I've ever bought it here. That was just first
I have no
lunch.
idea.
Bill Bailey?
Yeah, that was first lunch.
Well, I was eating the entire schedule too, so.
So Bobby, you gonna come plant our garden?
Bobby for
Bobby,
I
do
could
have a
barely
question,
plant my
though.
own. Yes.
So we have raised beds at our house.
Yeah.
And for the last few years, the yield on my tomatoes has been through the roof. And
Mhm.
this bed, that's all I have is tomatoes.
Yeah.
Last year, my crop grew huge, but didn't produce anything.
Were you
It's 'cause
getting,
you have almonds.
were you getting flowers?
Yes, they didn't produce.
Maybe pollination?
Say some kind of buggy, flower bug or something.
No, it's probably lack of pollination. Yeah, bees. I am known to go out and finger blast my pumpkin plants and tomato plants. I go out there with my finger and go in. I'm violating them. I'm reproducing for them with my finger. So. Because pumpkins are finicky.
Are they wet?
Yeah. The pumpkins, because you got to do it in the morning time. That's the only time they open. So they got a nice little mist on them. But yeah. Who knew? Birds and bees, flowers and trees.
Is there a less intrusive way, like, do I just add something to